Hello there. So this is a stitch video and I'm going to show you how to make my braids and twist stitch. And I named it Braid and Twist because that's what it looks like. You'll see that as we go further. This is what I'm going to use for the stitch video. But one of the stitches in it is my twisted chain stitch. So I'll just get this here. And so there you go. So that's the twisted chain stitch, so we're going to use that as one of the stitches. So as we get further along, you'll see that one begin to pop out. I really liked the way this looked. Of course, now I'm all tangled up with all these different yarns. But so I thought, oh, this is going to work great with other stitches. So the first thing I decided to do was try it with another stitch. So those will probably both be coming out. I'm going to make headbands with both of these. Okay, so all I did to cast on is I just did my normal one that I usually use, which is a crochet type of chain cast on, and I do have that on my YouTube channel, so you'll be able to see it easily. And then all I did was I did one row of owl eye stitch, and then I went right into this stitch. And if you need to see how to make owl eye, that's also on my YouTube channel. But what we're going to be doing in this one is we're going to be using the stitch I just showed you with owl eye on one peg in between it. And we'll see it more as it gets longer. I'll show you how I'm doing my edge because I know this edge is going to work fine for a headband. So I'm just doing an edge that gives me this look. It's nice and tight. And it will look good on the front of the headband. And this will be joined because I'm going to do it as a flat panel and then join it later. But I will have a stitch video for this right now, or I mean a project video for this. Right now I'm just going to show you how to do the stitch. Okay, so what I've done is this is going to be done in 3 peg groupings. So you can do it 3, 6, 9, 12 groups of 3, and then 2 for your end pegs, and more if your end pegs are more than 1 peg. You have an ending that you would rather do with it, then add those on. But it's going to be done in groups of 3 plus 2 if you just have the 1 end peg. And then I marked them so I would know what stitch I was doing. So this is how they're marked. I've got, this is just my starter peg. I've got no marking, and then I marked these 2. Now, when you do this, it's the same. It's just one continuous row. I mean, you just keep going. So it's just that kind of stitch. But you'll always be doing the same stitch on the marked pegs, and you'll be doing another stitch, always the same, on the unmarked. So here's your group of 3. Oh, I think I told you the wrong peg grouping because you need to end with that one. So it's going to be groups of 3 plus 1 plus your end pegs. So it's uneven. Going to be uneven because here we end with a stitch that'll work with our end. So we want to make sure we end with the stitch that'll work better with our end here. Okay, so I used a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Mine ended up that it worked out even, and it will do that with some of your 3 peg groupings. Adding on 2 to, well, adding on the 3 extra here. So you're going to always have a groups of 3 plus the 1, and then your end pegs. So that would work out if you're having end pegs of 1, it would just always be groups of 3 because you'd have these 3 extra. So your groups of 3 are going to either end up odd or even depending where they end up. I explained that really well, but I think you've got the gist of it. It's groups of 3. And then your end peg is going to be a starting of another group of 3, one that's not marked, and then you have your end peg. So no marker, these two go together. You want mark them any way you want, or if you're good at remembering, you don't have to. I could never do that. I would blow it big time. So no marker, 2, no marker, 2 marked, and then no marker, and then I just marked the end pegs. So that's how I did it. Okay, so let's show you how to do the stitch. So I've already started, so I'm just going to do my other wrap for this one, and I'll explain that more to you as we go along. And so I'm just coming from the right hand side of the peg where the yarn is, going behind it and wrapping in front of it and knitting over. And now here's our first 2 peg pair, and I'm going to show you how to do that. You're going to take the working yarn, go in front of both pegs, and then you're just going to knit off peg 2. And you're going to take the loop from peg 2 and move it over to peg 1 of the marked pegs and just snug it up a bit, and then take the 2 bottom loops and knit it over, and then just do an E-wrap on the empty peg. And that's what you'll be doing on every 2 peg pair. That's the stitch. Now on the pegs that aren't marked, you're going to go over it in a U-wrap, knit it over, and then to do owl eye on 1 peg, you need to wrap, go behind the peg, wrap in front of it again like that, and then knit it over. And then we go over to the 2 peg pairs, so you lay the yarn over both, and then you knit off peg 2, pick it up, take it over, snug it up, and you're not snugging it up really tight, you're just snugging it up so it's about the same tension as the lower loops, so that they're all around the same. See, this is fairly loose, this is fairly loose. So that's how we want it. So just so the braids look nice, knit it over. They're not real braids, but the braid look. Do your E-wrap. And I mean, when you've done the yarn over, when you actually go over, if you were to go over with a flat knit, you wouldn't get the stitch. You would get something completely different. It wouldn't look like the braids. So it's important to do the E-wrap here. So you do the E-wrap stitch here, and then you come over, do the U-wrap on the unmarked peg, go back behind it and in front of it, and give it another wrap. So that's owl eye on 1 peg. Okay, now you've got your 2 marked pegs again, so you go over the 2, knit off peg 2, bring it over to peg 1, snug it, knit the 2 strands over, and U-wrap, or I mean E-wrap the empty peg. And then we come over to the last peg, we do the U-wrap to do owl eye, and then we wrap over 2 of them like in the traditional owl eye stitch and knit it over. And then I'm just going to come back like this and knit the end peg. That's how I'm getting my end. Knit this one over and then knit it over again like that, and then we're over to our 2 peg pairs. But this is what it gives you, just this kind of braided look. I look at it this way too, braided look, but it's much different than a slip stitch. It's a tight look. Oh, this one, the colors pick it up better. That's what it looks like. Okay, so now when we come back, so we've just done this, the owl eye on the 1 peg here. Sorry. We just go in front of these 2. This is now peg 1. This is now peg 2 because we're going this way. So on every one of these peg pairs, peg 1, peg 2, peg 1, peg 2. So we knit over peg 2, bring it over to peg 1, knit them off, do your E-wrap, and then come over to do the owl eye on one peg, do a U-wrap, come back behind this way and in front of it, and knit it off, and there you go. Now you're on the next marked 2-peg pair. Now there is a little gear that you see on your YouTube where you're watching this. There's a little gear bottom right. If you click on that gear, you can slow down the video. So if you need to watch me do this stitch very slowly, you can. I'm going to go as close as I can until my neck gets too sore, and it's hard for me to see this close too. I mean, I don't see very good close up, so I'm not going to do it for very long. So we go over the 2 marked pegs, number 1 and number 2. We knit off number 2, we bring the loop on number 2 over to number 1 and not twisting it. We make sure it comes over exactly as it is, tighten it up a bit, knit both of these strands on the bottom over, just like that. Come over and do the E-wrap, and then over to do the owl eye on the one peg, like that, and over these 2 that are marked pairs, knitting over number 2, taking the loop, putting it on number 1, snugging it, knitting it over, E-wrap, over to do the owl eye on the one peg, over both pegs here, turning, going over both again. If you really want to slip your edges, you can. I don't like that. It's very loose. I like that a tighter finish. I very rarely slip. Okay, and then we wrap this one for its second wrap. We always want 2 wraps on these pegs, and we come over. This is the fast way I do it. Do my second wrap, come over both. I'll show it to you now. If you find it too confusing, don't do it this way. And I knit this over. I bring this over, knit them over, do my E-wrap, and then I just come over to the owl eye peg to do the owl eye and go like this. And like I say, if you see it, find it too confusing, don't do it this way. I've done it for quite a bit practicing this stitch, so I'm good at it. But I'll slow down and do it this other way. So we're going to do the owl eye on one peg. So we do the U-wrap, we go behind the peg, in front of the peg, wrap it again. We come over the 2 that are marked, knit peg 2 over, pick up the loop, put it on peg 1, snug it up, knit it over, do the E-wrap, come over, do the owl eye on one peg, do your end peg here, turn around, knit it over, knit this one over, and I'm just going to leave it at here. It needs a second wrap, but I think I've gone far enough there to show you how to do the stitch. So I'm just going to go a little further just so you can see how this is looking. And as you see, the braid is already popping forward and the owl eye is popping behind it. So it's going to give a really beautiful textured look. This would look really nice on blankets. I'm going to do a combination headband ear warmer because I really like that, and then I'm certainly going to keep this stitch as one of my blanket stitches too. Just a beautiful textured look doing it, and it's just one stitch you keep doing all the way along to get the look. But I'm going to do it a little further so that you can see it because it's still tight on the loom. If it you could do it lacy too, and you get a look like this, so it's quite pretty lacy. So if you wanted to do this stitch with a really fine yarn on a big gauge to get a really lacy stitch, it's quite pretty. It works really good. So that's another thing you can do, but I'm going to go further along so you can see what this stitch looks like. So I'll be right back after I do a couple rows and give you an idea of what the stitch looks like. And then you can look at my project video if you want to make this particular project, or go ahead and use it to make a blanket or whatever you'd like to. Okay, I did a couple more rows, and now here it's not as stretched on the loom, so it gives you an idea. So there you go, it's really got a lot of texture. These stitches are popping up here. If you do it as a lace, you won't have quite as much texture, but you'll still have a textured lace. This is going to come up braided, and then this will be a lot more lacy. So there you go, that's what it looks like, and here's a view of the back. Quite smooth, so if you're making it for clothing, this side is smooth against you. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this stitch and you can find some fun uses for it. And until we see you again, bye.